this is my grandpa, Ed Ristow, and I'm going to be asking him some questions about a school project today. So, Grandpa, here's the first question. When and where were you born?
I was born on June 14th in 1937. I was born in a little town in Wisconsin called Ristow. And they didn't have a hospital there, so I was born at home, and then I went to the neighboring town, Wisconsin Rapids, to make sure I was okay when I was born. I guess that's how that was.
All right. Question number 2. Tell me what school was like when you were in 6th grade. Where did you go to school and how long did you go?
I went to a German Lutheran parochial school, and it had 3 rooms in it. And the first room was kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, and 3rd grade, and 2nd grade. And in the next room there was 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And then in the other room it was 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. And there was one teacher in each room, and each teacher had 3 classes that she had to teach at the same time. So the other kids had to be quiet if you were teaching 6th grade, then the 5th grade, or 7th grade, and the 8th grade had to be quiet and do their homework the day before. And I went for 8 years, from kindergarten through 8th grade.
All right. Question number 3. What were some of your favorite foods? Were any of them traditional ethnic foods passed down in your family?
My favorite food was what my grandma made was a roast beef and potatoes and gravy. And I'm German, and that was an ethnic food for us. And other favorite foods were always the homemade pies and cakes that she made, and my mom was a real good cook also, but she worked during the day, so I stayed at my grandma's after school kind of thing.
All right. Question number 4. What was it like when you had your first child?
It was very exciting. I was a senior in college and with my wife, Judy, and it was just kind of awesome that this person actually belonged to us, and we were really excited about it and very happy and glad, of course, that everything went well.
Okay. That's great. Tell me what you did for fun with your friends when you were my age.
Okay. Well, when I was your age, we didn't have TV, and we spent most of our time outside. And after supper, we'd go outside and play. And we played games that we made up. I don't know, like we had one called Kick the Can. Somebody had to be it, and then they stood by the can, and everybody went to hide, and then you had to go look for them if they tagged you, and you had to go guard the can, one of those things. And then my dad put a basket up on the garage, and we played basketball, and we rode our bikes a lot. Let's see, what else did we do? We went to the movies on Saturday. That was kind of special. It cost 14 cents to go to the movie. One time one of my friends forgot or lost a penny, and the guy wouldn't let him in. Because those days money was pretty hard to come by.
Really important. Yeah. Okay, what styles of clothing did you wear for daily things or for dress?
Well, the daily things basically were just like you guys are wearing now. We had jeans, okay, and tennis shoes. We didn't wear tennis shoes much to school because we had to keep them for basketball, and so we wore regular shoes. And on Sunday we always get dressed up for church. The dress up would be a pair of casual pants with a nice shirt, and usually, I know in my family you only had one to each, so you had a nice pair of pants and a nice shirt. So you kind of saved that for special occasions.
Okay. What types of music and entertainment were popular when you were growing up?
Well, the music was, there was two kinds of music that we listened to, three actually. That was the era after World War II, and big bands, big orchestras, playing music by a fellow named Glenn Miller and that kind of thing, was made for dancing. So the adults would go dancing. And then my dad liked Dixieland, and that was kind of a fast music, and where a bunch of individual people who played different instruments got together and played their own separate thing, but that made music. That was about it as far as music was concerned. And oh, we liked classical music. My mom did, and so we listened to that on the radio. That's about it.
All right, number 8. What were some of your favorite hobbies years ago? Do you still have these hobbies today?
Yeah. One of the as a hobby, there was two things I had. I used to like to build paper airplanes out of use balsam wood or real soft wood, and you'd buy them from the store, and you put a real thin coat of paper over them, and you painted them a certain color, and then we'd fly them. And you flew them by opening up the window upstairs, and you push them out, and they fly down to the ground, and we run down and get them again, and take them back upstairs and do it again. That was their way of flying. And eventually they got little motors for them. When we first started out, we didn't have that. My other hobby, my dad liked to fish, so I learned how to fish with him. And he liked to hunt, so we hunted. The first thing we hunted was squirrels, and then as I got older, we hunted deer. And so those are some of the things I did as a hobby. And I also made a crystal radio. And that's all it was a crystal rock, and it had a little spring on the end of a wire, and you put it on that rock, and you had a headset, and you could listen to the local radio that was in town. But if something, the wind blew and stuff, if it faded, that was the end of it. It was kind of fun to make.
Yeah. What sports were popular when you were growing up? Did you play on any sport teams?
I think the same sports that are popular now, and not counting soccer, because we didn't have soccer in those days, but baseball and basketball, football and track were the ones that we all played the most. In grade school we played a lot of baseball and softball, a lot of basketball. We didn't have flag football because that hadn't come out yet, so we played tag football. If you got tagged, that means you had to stop them if I caught you. And basketball, we played outside for practice because we didn't have a gym. And then we'd go to a public school and we got to use their gym once a week for practice. And then we played every Saturday in a little league. I think you asked me about, then I went on to high school and played basketball, baseball, track, and football. And when you played, if you played at the varsity level, then you got a letter from your school, you know, what you could wear on your jacket. And I was lucky, I had 9 letters. I lettered 9 times. And in baseball, I lettered 3 times, basketball 3 times. Football, I was a quarterback twice, and I won some track.
All right, number 10. Did you have any pets when you were a child, and do you have any today?
I had a little dog when I was quite small. I was probably about 4 years old. The dog got sick, and my dad didn't know what to do. They took him to the veterinarian, and the veterinarian said he was sick, and they couldn't help him, and so they had to put him away at that time, and that was the end of my pets. But that's when I was young.
Yeah, and do you have any today?
And today we have a dog. He's a Yorkie, and his name is Gus, and we like him a lot. He makes us kind of giggle and laugh and enjoy.
All right, number 11. What was the scariest thing that ever happened?
Well, that's a hard question because over time, well, I think the scariest thing that ever happened to me was my dad said I could use the car for the first time when I got my license, And my friend and I decided to go out into the country and we were going to hunt. And we were going down a road that only had 2 little lane tire tracks in it, and I was going maybe too fast. And it rolled over and went into a cranberry ditch full of water. And that was scary because I couldn't find my buddy. And he had fell into the back seat. But he got out, he was okay. And that was probably the scariest thing as a kid. But the other scary thing was when I was in the Army. And I was in Korea, and one time somebody took a shot when I was on guard. And I don't know if it was at me or who, but that was pretty scary.
All right, number 12. What was the funniest thing that ever happened to you?
Well, I was thinking about the funniest things, you know, there's so many, but I think the funniest thing that ever happened was when my family, we went to the Mount Rushmore in that area, and we went to this one area where they had animals. And they had these buffaloes, and they were in a big fenced area. And this mother buffalo had little babies, and we weren't, my son Ross and I were looking at them and watching, and evidently she didn't like what we were doing. She come charging at us real fast inside the fence, and I figured that she'd probably come right through the fence, so Ross and I ran as fast as we could to the car. And your mother and her sister and my wife really thought it was funny because it scared us so bad. But that was just kind of a funny thing.
All right, number 13. What was the saddest thing that ever happened to you?
Well, saddest thing I think that ever happened to me, and it have to be this when my mom died and my dad died. 2 different, in 2 different years. During my childhood, I was pretty lucky. We didn't have anything that was real tragic like that, but that was pretty sad for me. That's about all I can think of. Really sad. I was really pretty happy.
All right, number 14. Tell me about your first job. What other jobs have you had? Which was your favorite? And what would be the ideal job, in your opinion?
My first job I ever had is I had a friend, his dad owned a canning company, and we got to go out and pick peas out of the pea field. We went out at about 5 o'clock in the morning, and when the sun came up, we started picking peas, and we did that until for 9 to 10 hours a day. And if you're really a good pea picker, then the next year you got to go work in the factory. And so I did that the following year.
And what other jobs have you had?
Well, other jobs I had when I was going to college in the summertime, because my dad worked in the paper mill, I would work in the paper mill and work shift work, like from 11 at night to 7 in the morning. And that was good because I could save my money for that for college. And when I was going to college, I attended bar at a place, and that helped me get through school too. And then when I had a job also of laying cement sidewalks in Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin when I was teaching for the summer. We did that. And that was a hard job, but was made good money.
All right, and which was your favorite?
My favorite job
That you've had?
that I had was probably tending bar, because I tended bar at a workman's bar, and you got to meet all these guys after work, and they were nice fellows, and you got a chance to talk to them and that kind of thing. And it seemed that the day would go fast that way, because they were there after work and enjoying themselves.
And what would be the ideal job in your opinion?
Well, there's one other job that I had that I really enjoyed. I just happened to remember, and that one was teaching and coaching. I liked coaching basketball very much, and as far as your question as to on the job, you said what was the best one?
Yeah, what was the ideal job?
Ideal job?
Yeah, in your opinion.
In my opinion, the ideal job would have been when I was teaching and coaching for me to go on and for example, coaching in the Big Ten, and be a famous coach. That would be my ideal job. But the job that I had as a high school principal was pretty neat.
All right, number 15. What kinds of chores did you have to do as a child?
Well, I always had to help wash the dishes, and I had to take out the garbage, take it out, to the garbage cans, and then we had a hot water furnace downstairs. It was this little furnace, and I had to put hardwood in that every morning. My job was to get up in the morning and light a fire in there so the water would be warm in time for everybody to wash up and get to work and go to school.
All right, number 16. Tell me about your parents. Were they strict?
They weren't real strict, but they had rules that you had to go by. You'd be home at a certain time, and they wanted to know where you were. And they were good, very good parents, as far as I was concerned. And they loved me a lot. My mother was a very small person. She was only 4'10". But don't let that size fool you, because she was a real hard worker. And she worked during the war, so I spent a lot of time with my grandma at that time. And then when my dad came home, he went back to work in the paper mill. And he was a good guy. He did a lot of good things. He was a real good athlete. He liked and played a lot of basketball and baseball and softball. And so I got a chance to see him do that. And we did those things together as I grew up.
All right, number 17. Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I have one sister, and she's 12 years younger than I am. And basically I kind of babysat for her because our ages were so far apart. And, but we didn't get to know her very well when she was little, and by the time she got to be like in high school, then I was gone, and I was in Korea and back at school. So we're getting to know each other even now yet as we grow older.
What kinds of things did you do together?
Well, because of our age difference, we didn't do a lot of things together unless it was a family thing.
Do that one again.
17. Did you have any brothers or which part?
The next one, the
Next
next part.
Do you still see any of your brothers or sisters today?
Well, I only had one sister, and I still see her. And I guess we get together 3 or 4 times a year at special times. And she lives in Madison, Wisconsin, which is far away from me. So we try to take turns seeing each other, coming to each other's houses. That's about it.
Okay. 18. Tell me about your grandparents. Did you get to know them?
Okay. I got to know my dad's mom and dad the best, my grandpa Ristow and my grandma Ristow, because I had stayed there during the war. My mother's side, her dad was killed in a car accident when he was young, so I didn't get to meet him, but I knew her mom, Grandma Dunham, her name was, and she was a librarian for the city of Nakusa, where I was born.
Okay. Number 19. What were your hopes and dreams for the future when you were my age?
That's a hard one when you're young, for your hopes and your dreams, because you have so many of them, I was going through them, and first of all, my hope was to be a good student and be a good person, and go to school and do what was right. And then, of course, I had the hopes of playing basketball. I was playing sports in high school, and that kind of, and I did that. And I played baseball and basketball in college. So I got, one of my hopes was to play sports when I was going to school. As far as my future, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and we didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't go to college right away. So I volunteered for the draft for the Army, and that's how I got into the career, because when I came from the Army, I would get money from the government to go to school. So that helped out.
Okay, what books were popular and which ones were your favorites?
Because I went to a parochial school, our library was pretty sparse of books, period. And what was there had to do probably with the history of the Lutheran religion, and maybe some history on well, the U.S. history books that we had at school was the ones that I read the most, because that was about the United States. I didn't get to do much reading on just novels and that kind of thing.
And which ones were your favorites?
Well, I was afraid you were going to ask me that, because I don't remember any of my favorites. I really cannot tell you, other than the history of the United States. I really like that. So that was when I go home one night, if I wanted to read something, like get that out and read about what was going on, what had happened, you know, back in the old world.
All right, 21. How old were you when you had your first date, and what was dating like?
I was 15 years old when I had my first date, and didn't have a car, so you met your date. In our case, we had a soda fountain downtown, ice cream fountain, and a place to go, and we would meet there with everybody and our date and have a soda and talk about school, and they had a jukebox there and we could dance, and then you had to be out. It closed at 8 o'clock at night, so you had to be out by that time to get back home. And that was kind of our hangout. Like on the weekend, we went down there and talked about the sports and what was going on in my hometown of Wisconsin Rapids.
All right, how did you meet your spouse? Tell me about it.
I met my spouse at going to college in La Crosse, and I met her at school. And actually, I met her at school. We're in the same psychology class, but I really got to know her. I met her, and we were at a football game away in Menominee, Wisconsin, and she was there. She was dating a football player at the time, and I met her at a college hangout and introduced myself, and we danced there, and one thing led to another, and we became good friends, and pretty soon I got engaged and married.
All right, were you ever afraid of anything?
The only thing I was ever afraid of was I got bit once by a German Shepherd when I was peddling papers. And to this day, I'm still afraid of German Shepherds. That one kind of stuck with me. I can remember being afraid of the dark when I was little. And then when I got to Korea and we had to walk guard in the dark, I remembered that it was okay to be not afraid of the dark. But that was a different kind of afraid than being just back home, you know.
Okay, number 24. What was transportation like when you were my age?
Okay. Well, there weren't as many cars on the road as there are now, and we only had one car, and because we didn't have a lot of money. Our car was always pretty old, but it ran. And if I wanted to use it when I got older, like to go take it on a date when I had my driver's license, and I'd have to tell my dad ahead of time I'd like to use them on Friday after the basketball game, for example. For example, we could go down and have a soda, you know, like in the car. The roads, county roads were okay, but most of the side roads were dirt in those days. And so we didn't drive down them only unless you had to. And using the car was a treat for me because I only had one.
All right, number 25. If you could have pictured yourself years ago, is this where you thought you would be now?
Well, I had no idea other than getting through college. And like I told you, I joined the Army to help me get through college. And I was lucky, I got to see some foreign countries. I got to see South Korea and Japan when I was in the service. And I went to California, things I probably would have never seen because we didn't have the money to do that in those days. Then I was trained in the Army. That was good discipline to learn how to follow directions and take orders without, getting upset. But as far as getting to where I was going, no, I had no idea other than the fact I knew I wanted to go to college and maybe play some sports.
All right, 26. Do you think peer pressure was the same for kids years ago? Tell me why.
I think the peer pressure was much less when I was a kid than it is now with you.